Hidden telemetry data from Mclaren has just exposed what fans have been whispering about for weeks. Lando Norris MCL39 appears to be benefiting from a technical edge one Oscar Piastri never had access to. The numbers, the traces, the setups all tell a story that doesn't fit the official narrative. And now, after months of loyalty and silence, Oscar Piastri is done playing nice. When the lights went out, the two McLarens launched like synchronized machines, identical reactions, identical grip. Yet, within the first lap, something subtle shifted. Through turn 3, Norris's MCL39 rotated effortlessly, carving through the apex with fluid aggression. Piastri's car, by contrast, resisted. "Understeer mid-corner," he said, voice steady. The reply was short. "Copy, Oscar. We'll review after the stint." But he already knew. The car wasn't behaving like it should. Not wrong. Just restrained. Like it was holding something back. By lap 10, the gap between the teammates began to grow. 0.3 here, half a second there, small, but consistent. "He's finding front grip earlier," said Piastri's performance engineer from the pit wall. The data looked clean, but the traces didn't match. Norris's hybrid deployment was hitting sooner at corner exits a fraction of a second, invisible to the eye, yet deadly on the stopwatch. "ERS window looks different between cars," whispered a technician. Different? How? His recovers earlier, hits harder. Oscar's is smoother, slower. The words were cautious. In Formula 1, different doesn't mean better. It means not equal. Oscar didn't panic. He never does. He began adjusting manually brake bias, differential, throttle modulation, trying to recreate the balance the car refused to give him. "Still washing mid-phase," he reported. The engineer's voice came back, calm and clinical. "Copy. Car behavior within parameters." That phrase, "within parameters," was McLaren code for "we can't explain it." But Piastri could feel the truth in the steering wheel, in the throttle delay, in the way the car hesitated through the S's. The data might not have confessed yet, but his instincts already had. By lap 20, the frustration wasn't visible, only traceable in the extra tenth of throttle here, the slightly later braking there. "Balance still stable?" the pit wall asked. "Stable," he replied. "But not equal." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. In that instant, his calm became its own form of rebellion. Even through the radio, even through the static, his words carried weight, the tone of a driver who'd started doing the math in real time. The morning after Mexico, McLaren's headquarters in Woking was quieter than usual. No champagne, no celebrations, just data. Rows of monitors glowed in the dim light, displaying lines of telemetry that told a story numbers weren't supposed to tell. Oscar Piastri's traces were clean, consistent, disciplined, exactly what the engineers expected from him. But Norris's data was something else entirely. More rotation, faster torque recovery, higher exit speeds. One of the senior engineers leaned forward, squinting at the hybrid deployment curve. "That's not setup variation," he said. "That's software behavior." Andrea Stella entered the room, expression unreadable, coffee in hand. "Show me," he said quietly. The main screen filled with the overlay, blue for Norris, orange for Piastri. The difference was subtle but undeniable. "He's getting energy delivery earlier," Stella observed. "Where's that coming from?" The data engineer hesitated. "We uploaded a new hybrid deployment model to test in free practice. Lando's car kept it for race day." Stella turned slowly. "And Oscar's?" He reverted to the baseline model. "Why?" The pause that followed said everything. "We didn't have enough correlation time," the engineer admitted. "So we only ran it on one chassis." The silence was sharp enough to cut through metal. McLaren prided itself on equality, same car, same opportunity, no politics. But the data didn't care about pride. The data was math, and math doesn't lie. Stella exhaled. So one driver was running experimental mapping that increased hybrid torque and brake migration responsiveness? Yes. And it worked. The engineer nodded. It gave better rotation through mid-speed corners. Norris picked up roughly 0.2 per lap. The room fell still. Stella's tone dropped. Then we've got a problem. Piastri arrived at the debrief 10 minutes later, calm and focused as always. He took his seat beside Norris, nodded politely, and waited for the meeting to begin. Stella started the session with the usual language positive result, strong weekend, both drivers in points. But Piastri wasn't listening to the summary. His eyes were fixed on the screen. 2 lines. 2 cars. 2 different stories. He could see it immediately. "Why's the deployment trace out of sync?" he asked, pointing at the chart. The room went silent. "That's just correlation variance," one engineer said quickly. Piastri didn't look away. "No, it's not. Look at the torque ramp here and here." He tapped the screen. "The delivery isn't symmetrical." Norris shifted slightly in his chair. Stella cleared his throat. "Oscar," he began carefully, "Lando was running a slightly different configuration for data collection. It wasn't a performance choice." Oscar nodded slowly, expression unchanged. "So you're telling me the car that was faster through every mid-speed corner wasn't running a performance upgrade, it was collecting data?" The question wasn't confrontational. It was surgical. Stella replied quietly. "That's the official reasoning." "Understood," Piastri said, still watching the screen. "And I suppose the official reasoning doesn't include why I wasn't told." The line hit harder than any accusation. Piastri didn't need to raise his voice, his calm made the words sting more. "You didn't think I'd notice," he added. Stella stayed composed. "We were operating within procedural limits." Oscar leaned back, his tone level but sharper. "Then maybe it's time to change the procedure." No one spoke after that. Even Norris avoided eye contact. After the meeting, Piastri walked straight to the telemetry room. "I want full access to my race data," he told the engineers. "And his." They hesitated. "You'll see identical systems," one said weakly. "Then you won't mind me checking." He didn't wait for approval. He was already scanning the logs, frame by frame, line by line. Within 10 minutes, he found a modified deployment curve, locked to Norris's car ID. "That's it," he said quietly. "That's the difference." His engineer leaned over his shoulder. "How did you see that?" Oscar didn't look up. "Because I know how it's supposed to feel." By Tuesday morning, the tension inside McLaren's Woking facility was no longer subtle. Behind the polished glass walls and polite smiles, something had cracked. The internal memo that Stella circulated to the performance division read like damage control. The experimental hybrid mapping was applied selectively for correlation purposes. All future test configurations will be transparently distributed across both cars. But everyone in the room knew what it really meant. They had been caught. The engineers spent hours reviewing the telemetry again, line by line, trying to frame the issue as a misunderstanding rather than a bias. "It was procedural," said one systems analyst. "We had limited hardware access, and Norris's side of the garage was ready first." Another nodded quickly. "It's not like we hid it, it was logged in the system." But Stella's reply cut through the excuses. "You logged it," he said coldly, "and you didn't tell him." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The silence that followed was worse than shouting. In the midst of the storm, Piastri remained composed. He wasn't chasing blame, he was chasing understanding. "Show me the code revision," he asked his engineer later that afternoon. The engineer hesitated. "Oscar, it's just back-end calibration." "Exactly," he interrupted. "So show me." Within minutes, he was staring at the lines of system logic that had created the gap. "This variable here," he said, pointing at the screen, "is what gives the earlier torque response." The engineer nodded. "Yes, it anticipates throttle input." "Then why wasn't it tested on both cars?" The engineer didn't answer. "You didn't have to explain it to me," Piastri said quietly. "I already felt it." That phrase, "I already felt it," became a kind of legend in the McLaren garage. Not angry. Not arrogant. Just certain. Because that's what defines Oscar Piastri, precision without panic. The next day, while some departments were still drafting statements and reports, he was back in the simulator. Same setup, same parameters, but this time, the new hybrid logic was active on his car. From the very first lap, the stopwatch proved him right. He's gaining mid-corner time now, an engineer observed. It's consistent. Stella, watching from behind the glass, said nothing, but the look on his face was enough. The Australian had exposed the system, then mastered it faster than anyone expected. By the end of the simulation session, Piastri's lap times were cleaner and quicker than Norris's reference data from Mexico. "He's smoother on torque transition," said one telemetry engineer. "Less oscillation on exit." Another leaned in. "He's adapting to the mapping faster than the algorithm predicted." Stella smiled faintly. "That's Oscar," he said. "He learns faster than we can explain it." It wasn't a compliment thrown lightly, it was acknowledgement. Still, the political tension didn't fade. Some inside McLaren whispered that giving Piastri the same tools now would destabilize the balance between drivers. "Lando's built his rhythm around that mapping," said one strategist. "Equalizing could backfire." Stella dismissed the idea instantly. "Equalizing can't backfire," he said. "It's fairness." But he knew the real challenge wasn't technical anymore, it was psychological. Piastri had seen behind the curtain. He now understood how advantage could hide inside code, how opportunity could be disguised as procedure. And that kind of awareness changes everything. When asked by the media later that week if he felt the team had treated him fairly, Piastri's reply was a masterclass in diplomacy and control. "McLaren's given me incredible support," he said. "But Formula One is about details, and sometimes, details decide the difference." That was it. No accusation. No headline. Just truth, elegantly disguised as composure. Behind the scenes, that single sentence hit harder than any outburst could have. He had exposed the issue without escalating it, and in Formula One, that's the mark of intelligence. By Thursday, the team had rolled out new protocols ensuring both drivers received identical software updates and calibration timing. Officially, the issue was closed. But inside McLaren, everyone knew who had forced that change. One engineer put it best: he didn't win the argument by shouting. He won it by understanding.